excited to introduce my new voice panel, who are going to introduce themselves because they'll do it better than me and tell us a little bit about their books. Start with Alex, because he's at the top.
Oh, yes, I'm sort of 1 o'clock, aren't I? Hi, it's like the Brady Bunch. Hi! So my name's Alex Scarrow. I've been previously published with Penguin and HarperCollins and Orion. And previously I've written in genres, thrillers, high concept thrillers, and teenage fiction. And recently I've turned to crime. And I think I was looking for a genre that would basically allow me to engage more with the real world than with the other genres I've written in. And crime really does that. I think in the way we are today in this world, to not be somehow connecting or commenting on it is to literally have your head in the sand. So this is the right genre for me.
Chris, next.
Yeah, my name's Chris Speck. I come from East Yorkshire, and I write books about East Yorkshire. Sometimes they have a crime in them, sometimes they don't. So I'm kind of a bit of an outsider here because I'm not really a crime writer, although you tell me I am. So yeah, I just deal with real situations with real people, and I generally write about the people around here because nobody else does. So yeah, thanks for having me on today.
Lovely, and Philip?
Yep, I'm similar to Chris in a way. I'm from Belfast and write about Belfast in the Belfast crime series. I am a debut author. My first book, something I've always wanted to do, and last year the big pause that happened gave me the opportunity to grab some space and sit down and write. So I, as I say, come from Belfast, which has the dubious honours of having the Europe's most bombed hotel, and it's the scene of the UK's biggest unsolved cash heist, amongst many other well documented historical issues. So I think it's a good place to write about. Crime is something that I've always read, always enjoyed, and hopefully my books kind of give a sense of Northern Ireland and Belfast and its people the way it is, and maybe the darker side, but also the good that's there.
Right, I'm going to start you all off with Sam's favourite question, or a new favourite question, which is, what's the last scene that you wrote, without giving away spoilers?
Ooh.
Should we go in reverse order and start with Philip?
Yeah, that's fine. I actually, the scene I wrote this afternoon, the last scene I wrote, was part of a thriller series that I write, which features a character, incidentally, who's in one of the crime books. He was on an operation. It went fatally wrong, and he was the only one to survive it. So we've had a couple of chapters of the fallout of that, his recovery, and at the end of about 4 o'clock today, his doctor, who was signing him out of a ward back into the arms of his colleagues, who ribbed him incessantly then about A, screwing up the mission, and B, his rather attractive doctor. So that's a work in progress. It's getting to the pointy end of a thriller, which is, you know, something that I enjoy writing too and reading. So that was my last scene.
Sounds good.
Nice, Chris.
I've been writing about taxi drivers, actually. I don't know, they're a really strange bunch, taxi drivers. You know, they see everything, and they see a side of society that we don't see. So my next book's about a bunch of taxi drivers, and it's a gangster thriller set here in Hull. And I've just written the first chapter about the day shift, where one of the lady taxi driver accidentally kills someone in a kind of a gruesome way. So that's where I'm at, really. But yeah, I need to find a lot about taxi drivers at the moment. Fascinating subjects, fascinating people who do a job on the dark side of society. So that was my last one.
So I'm working on book 4, and in the first quarter of the book is a train siege. So DCI Boyd is coming back from a conference in Brighton and finds himself in a siege hostage taker situation. And he's the only cop on board, and it's kind of like, oh dear, I'm off duty. I've had a few to drink. but I am the only copper. So.
Do you guys kind of have to sort of ask real coppers what happens a lot? Do you pick it up and...
I've done that quite a bit in the UK CBC, and there's a lot of coppers there, and they're very, very helpful.
Yeah.
There's a couple of great sites that are on Facebook groups that were loaded with people with all sorts of intimate knowledge. Facebook's a great place when you need answers. I'm sure there's a taxi driver group, but
I will meet. That's what I'll do is I will go and talk to people while I'm writing the book. And I don't know if you guys find this, but what happens, I find that when I'm researching and I'm talking to people, often their stories will bleed into the book at the same time. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, certainly aspects of it, definitely. Yeah, maybe character traits, or certainly you're bound to have a taxi driver you've spoke to who's starting to morph into a character or has those wee personality quirks.
Oh, definitely, yeah. So yeah, I find the research. Well, I love doing the research. Basically, I mean, but the last one I wrote was all about the 17th. It's set in 1709, so I had to talk to loads of people about history and stuff like that, and learn about so much stuff. I find it really interesting. I mean, do you do a lot of research, guys? Then?
Well, you have to, I think, because you're kind of as a writer, you're promoting yourself as to be an expert on a certain subject for a short while. And if you screw up and write something, it's enshrined in text, your idiocy forever.
Yeah.
To spare your blushes, I think it's worth putting the time in.
Have you made any screw-ups?
And
been caught out on it as well?
Luckily, I mean, with my Boyd series, I've got a team of very, very good beta readers. In fact, we put our book 3 to our beta readers this week, and they've caught a dozen things that really would have made me blush.
Yeah. My last book was about a trawler, and I called a wall on a boat. I called a bulkhead on a boat a wall. And anyone who's been to sea, you can't do that. But I thought to myself, well, normal people won't know what a bulkhead is, so let's call it a wall. And Caroline, it was your dad who pointed that out.
Yeah,
seemed to get most upset.
My dad is quite pedantic about things like that.
That's fine though, it's like
never mention decibels to him.
Oh really?
Yeah, I grew up with his lectures about things that were wrong. At least you don't call it a like a wall. Sam wants to know if any of you have ever acted out a scene to make sure you get the details right.
All the time, fighting scenes, all the time.
You do, don't you? And you make the sounds as well.
I've got quite a bit of realia, which sort of helps me to sort of write scenes. Like I've got this. I just had to have it just to see what it's like to have a pistol. To feel how it works, and so I think realia is really important for me. Anyway, do you find that as well, guys?
I mean, I would certainly have loads of sketch maps. So if there's stuff happening and someone needs to be somewhere, and this is, even down to the room sort of situation where there's different things happening and lots of people involved, you want to know where, just so you can have it in your mind's eye. But sometimes, how did you get from 10 feet away to right beside someone else in a scene? But yeah, even the acting out, I don't know whether I would so much act out, but certainly you would run through the dialogue as see how it feels, how it sounds, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I tend to do all the cheesy accents, and I'm like a sort of a thespian that never happened to get a job. Frustrated thespian, that's what I'm looking for. So it's a chance to do my sort of Amdram, all alone in a very safe space.
So I'm going to read you the comments that come in from there. Sam said she never thought about making the sounds. Donna says next time you do it, please record it. And I think this might be Debbie who said don't encourage him.
This could be your launch pad, Alex.
No, I'm very shy when it comes to actually being caught out doing this. Yeah. Debbie's probably going to secretly record me writing on it and post it on the UK CBC.
That would be marvelous, Debbie. We will give you treats.
No.
feel like we need to buy her a drink if she does that.
I'll never talk to her again.
Yeah, you might need to buy her a new house. Never mind a drink.
Well, it's like when you're in a car, and you're alone. You can be in a traffic jam, and you kind of feel that no one can see or hear you or see you. So you do all those sorts of things that you think you do. Pick your nose, or sort of like lay out some lines of dialogue or do a bit of opera singing, because no one can hear you. You're not going to see these people again. And so there's a few. I live in a small village, and sometimes at a traffic light, I've been caught out doing something daft like that, and you could realise it's, oh, hello, Roger.
Style it out with
Do you all have a favourite character that you write?
Well, yeah, I do. It depends at the time. I don't write one character all the time. But yeah, I'll have to like them in some way. I can't really engage with them. I've tried to write characters that I didn't like, and I think that's really hard to do.
Favourite one you've ever written, then?
I'd have to have a think about it. Probably the captain from the last book. What was his name? Richard Bird. Hazel Road Man.
Was that the 1709?
No, this is the one set on a trawler in 1974.
Oh, right.
He's the captain, skipper of the Cuckoo. And a brave and honest man. So
I'm curious. The trawler, that's a crime book? A crime occurs on a trawler.
Yeah.
Oh,
so there's a murder on the trawler in 1974. Obviously, the only people who could have done it is on board. But also, the story is not really about the crime. It's about the people and the history of trawling here, and what happened to it, and this city as well. So it's kind of like the city's and like another character in the book, really. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's like a closed room murder, really.
Yeah.
No, I suppose I haven't got although my sort of books have an ensemble cast, there is. So yeah, a bit like Chris, I like them all. There's definitely, you have to like, even the sort of bad guys have quirks and things that you like to write about, and sides of their personality that are maybe slightly humorous, even though they're operating in a dark space. But I have a detective sergeant, Doc Mcpherson, who's probably one of them guys that everybody loves, but his tact wouldn't be his greatest sort of strong point, and he's kind of an old guard in a new police force, and still he struggles a bit to fit in. He fits in, but he struggles to fit in, and maybe he's guiding the newer detective inspector and the new breed of policeman who are sort of keeping him on the straight and narrow in these sort of PC days that he's not got a clue of with. So yeah, he's good. He's always sort of offers up something to entertain.
Is he based on anyone then, or is he just?
No, he's not. He's not based on anyone really. I suppose. Well, in saying that, there's probably a couple of people, not directly. He maybe has certain influences, but not. He's not someone just out of my imaginary friend list. Those ones we all have. I did at one stage way back when I in a job I had come across a big burly colour sergeant, and I suppose he operates in that sort of manner. He was that kind of big barrel chested big man with that kind of personality. So
I've noticed a lot of DCIs and DIs seem to be quite big, clumsy characters. I mean, mine's the same. DCI Boyd, he's a bit of a sort of leaden-footed, ham-fisted character, but they all seem to be quite tall, so imposing chaps, don't they? These lead coppers.
And they like
maybe this market for a very small Weasley one.
Yeah, I get. Well, he's Mcpherson's sort of the DS to the DI who's a woman. She's a young up and coming, she's not up and coming, she's been in the job a while, but she's a sort of the new police, if you want, and the two of them bounce off each other quite well, I think.
There's definitely, you can play with that, can't you? So the more recently sort of degree educated straight into CID cops and the ones that come up through the ranks. There's a culture clash you can play with.
Yeah, I think it's just they can complement each other. Each has something to learn, still. So I enjoy that sort of relationship and that bounce, that kind of interaction.
We've got a question from Laura Hamilton for you. She says, with Chris's books set in different time periods, is there a period in history the authors would like to travel back to, and why?
Man, history's awful. Can you imagine what it's like living in 1709, man? It was just dreadful, and not only the stuff you didn't have, but also the things you believed in as well. You didn't have any of this liberal, ideology. It was, you still believed in magic, and it was a terrifying time. So no, I'd like to live here or in the future.
Yeah. Also, I look. There's a lot of periods of history. You go, oh, I'd love to go there, but then you think about, hang on, if I had a toothache, that would change everything.
If you could go for a day, maybe it'd be okay.
Yeah.
Or an afternoon.
You see, I suppose and Chris, I admire you writing about it. I don't imagine. I had an idea before I started writing these books that I would write about Northern Ireland and the police service right at the beginning of partition, where Belfast was you had the Titanic, you had the end of the First World War, you had
really good.
It bubbles away in the background there. It's a great, I think, of something there to work on, but not for a long time because there's so much research. But the likes of David Ashton's McCleavey, that Victorian Edinburgh, or Bernard Cornwell Sharp, all those that kind of historical, those books I grew up with and love. So
yeah, me too.
Would I go back to Waterloo and watch from under a bush, maybe, or kind of would I walk the cobbles of the old town in Edinburgh when Sherlock or McCleavey or Sherlock's in London? Yeah, definitely that period would be brilliant.
As a geological period I'd like to go back to, which is Gibraltar Rock used to link to North Africa. 40,000 years ago, the Mediterranean was basically a large dry basin, wasn't it? An arid valley. And they calculated about 40,000 years ago, the razor-thin peninsula of rock caved away, and the Atlantic filled into the Med.
Wow.
And they reckon it took about 40 years for the Mediterranean to fill up. But it would have been like Ice Age, with the squirrel kind of like pushing his acorn into the thing, and that would have been spectacular.
Yeah.
We want to travel back in time, provided we can bill and Ted it and just go and come back.
Hot tub time machine.
Oh yeah.
Donna says she's got the captions on and it's recognizing trawler as trolls, but that could just be Chris's accent.
Goodness knows what I'm saying now.
Leslie's really complimentary. She says it's an ultimate locked room mystery. TG, one of our author members, wants to know if any of you have written a story and then discovered another writer has written something very similar.
Oh,
yeah.
Alex is nodding away.
Yeah, it happens all the time. It's very difficult, I suppose, in this day and age to come up with a brand new story, a brand new concept, something that hasn't been done before. And I think several times I've started books and realized there's something like this. Thing is, you can get away with if you write something that somebody else told that story, say 20 years ago, then I guess that's fine. But if you find that you're coming out at the same time or the same year as somebody with a very similar novel, it can spike your guns. So I've had that a few times.
Yeah.
I suppose I haven't. I did read recently somewhere where someone had went and they were at the point where they were ready to press the button and then realized they had the same, not identical, but a version of a book and with exactly the same title as a fairly popular author. So yeah, he had to consider whether he was pulling the trigger and letting it go. But no, not for me, thankfully.
It hasn't happened to me either, because sometimes my ideas are so weird that I have to normalize them out. So, but it happens a lot with songs when you're playing the guitar, and I've done this before, and I've said to the lads, I've said, "Look, I've written a song, lads. Listen to this song," and they'll hear it and say, "Oh, that's the Michael Jackson song."
Yeah.
Oh, But so it does happen. I mean, you know, ideas bleed into your head, don't they? And you copy them.
Yeah, I guess, don't they say there's only really 7 different stories, isn't there? There's that sort of theory of the variation on a theme, but
if you ever get stuck, you just throw unicorns in, and that usually goes.
I would think that films are improved by the addition of dinosaurs. Certainly, so you could chuck a dinosaur in as well.
There is a dinosaur in the Ulster Museum, so that could work for me.
Well, it's a bit of novel, sort of 4th act kind of development of the story. As a pair of velociraptors sneak in. And...
That's it.
I'm sorry, I was reading. David Monaghan Jones, who was an ex-policeman, said most of the SIOs he knew and worked with were well over 6 feet.
And clumsy, probably.
Well, he worked with the bridge docks, who were the consultants in the Happy Valley. So I'm wondering if Bob is over 6 feet. If he said that.
No, it's a fab piece of work. Sally Wainwright's sort of script and that show was great.
Did you see Mayor of Easttown?
I haven't yet, but I've seen a 10-minute clip of it, and
it struck me as Happy Valley done in the States. Very similar kind of vibe to it.
I'll have to watch it. On the list, amongst the reading and the writing and the work and the...
T also wants to know what you'd all be doing if you weren't here for the interview.
Probably running and maybe drinking whiskey. It is Friday, isn't it?
I would be...
no. Later, maybe.
No, I'd be walking 2 dogs and then probably sitting in the garden. That's it. Although I have a stepdaughter, 16th birthday party, so she'll need picked up in a lot of hours. That's what I would have been doing and will be.
Yeah, same here. I've got to walk Aussie. I've got a spaniel or 2. Crazy dogs. They take a lot of exercise.
Where are your dogs now, guys? Are they with you, or are they shut away somewhere?
My partner's got them all sort of secured in another room because they can be a little bit overwhelming and jump up in the seats and you know.
Yeah, I left one of mine's chilled out, lying on the back step, guarding the garden, and the other one's lying on a sofa, catching the last of the sun. So they're not bad.
Selena's got a question for you, Alex. She said, "Is there a friendly rivalry between you and your brother?"
Oh, yes, Simon. There is. There's always been a friendly rivalry between us. So for those of you who don't know, Simon writes a Roman series, which has done particularly well.
Yes, I've read those actually. Yeah.
Yeah, Cato and Macro series, which has done spectacularly well. And luckily, because we write in different genres, we're not directly cannibalizing each other's readers, so the rivalry can be friendly. But yeah, as you can imagine with siblings, it's you're always going to have that kind of rivalry going on. It's all in good nature, though.
Were you both writers from early, Alex, or did one or the other of you take it on first, or?
Simon got there first, but then he's older, so
you let him have.
We'd always been creative. You know, when we were younger, we used to make little cine films with a Super 8 camera and do stop motion animation and sword fights and kid ourselves that we were making Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's always been that.
Do you help each other out a little bit, like, you know, give each other tips? And
not really. I mean, we both have our own style. We both have our own voice, I suppose. Because we're in different genres, the kind of tips that we could give each other just wouldn't, I suppose, be relevant. Wouldn't cross genre very well. Simon's historical, and mine have always been contemporary thrillers and crime.
A centurion isn't going to save this train siege then. All riding in on a dinosaur.
Yeah. I'm seeing book 5 forming.
I would read a book about a centurion riding in on a dinosaur. I might be the only one, but I would read it. David Monaghan Jones also wants to know if you've ever had the fortune or misfortune of having a night out with a team of detectives.
No, I've never been out with a bunch of detectives.
I've been out with a few of them before, actually. There's quite a bit of banter.
It's quite raucous, is it?
Yeah, they are. I mean, they have policemen are a special breed. They come up against danger all the time. I don't think normal people realise that.
I think there's a valve they have, isn't there? Really, that it just an outsider looking in maybe doesn't get to a degree. Right. Just as you say, they're dealing with the worst of people and the worst of things every day of their working lives. So it's there has to be some kind of safety valve.
I think the uniform cops get to see a lot more of the grisly stuff than the CID as well. I mean, we all write about CID and make it sound exciting and dangerous, but actually it's the guys in uniform who are dealing with it every day.
I mean, I know there's a couple, a guy that I would know, it's quite recently, but he would describe himself as the guy that waits on the undertaker coming. He seems to have fallen for the person that's just died, the elderly person or the person living alone, and the neighbor says we haven't seen him in a few days, and for whatever reason he's ended up being the guy that's there, finds out and has to wait. So he amongst other things, he says the odd, as you say, uniform they're the pointy end as well, I guess, the ones that raid the house parties that have been raging in the midst of COVID and then get the abuse. But uniform are, I guess sometimes as a writer, you have the tendency to not write them off, but underplay their part.
Well, that's it, because I think with CID you have a sort of a higher level picture, whereas the uniform, you're on the ground, it's a lower level picture. So as a storyteller, you want to have the higher view. But you're right. I mean, my son was a uniformed police officer for a while. I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story, but he'd finished his training and was on that 6-month probationary period, and he was exposed to some pretty heavy duty stuff. And one night with his trainee sergeant, he was there were three scroats, as they say, with shanks, and his trainee sergeant said, "Right, I'm going this way around the block, and you go the other way, and we'll trap them in the middle." And he's the other way around on his own, thinking, "Hang on, I'm alone in the dark, up against 3 people with. Why am I doing this?"
Yeah,
it's crazy, and obviously he's not a policeman anymore. And I'm so relieved, because it's not the safest job in the world.
No,
I have been on some police sort of evening things, but at that time I worked with what would probably have been the groups that they were trying to catch, and they used to just be telling me they were coming to arrest. Very fond of them in the morning. But yeah, they're quite entertaining, police night outs.
Yeah.
So cover design, tell us about who designs your covers.
Mine have been from my own fair hand to this point. I was probably creative enough in school, loved art, always loved writing, but I always loved drawing, always loved that sort of aspect of it. Didn't do very well in my art GCSE, it has to be said, but I just took to doing my own at this point anyway, I guess.
Do you have one to show?
Pardon me?
Do you have one to show?
Yep. This So this is Code of work out where way the camera's going. So this is Code of Silence. That's the Belfast Oval Tower, and the waterfront of Belfast, and then one of the other books, Behind Closed Doors, sort of follows a similar vein, but has a detective going through a door. So I enjoyed that part of it. It's kind of, once you've done the writing and you've done a bit of things are knocking together with the editor and things like that, then I guess for me it was a call of having an editor or spending money on a cover, and I guess with a joy maybe down the line there'll be a surplus there for someone to design covers, but they seem to be well enough received, so I'm happy enough.
Cool.
I've
got a friend of mine in Hull who's an artist who does it for me. We just find an image that we like, we either buy it or copy it, and then he just puts the letters on for me. So it's nice. I've got one. So this is a really nice picture by a whole artist of a trawler that your dad actually knows, doesn't he? I think, Caroline. He told me. He said, "Why did he use this?" He said, "Because that ship was junked in 1953." So we just get a nice picture, and then he designs it for me. So he's a good guy, and I pay him like almost nothing. But then that's the way the game is. And then the next one's pretty much the same. Actually, this is a bit of a mock-up, but we got a nice picture of a highwayman, and he's done the cover design for me. So yeah, that's who makes mine. Who does yours, and Alex? Is it? It's
me, but I used to. So his Silent Tide. That's book 2. Actually, that was taken. We had a misty night outside our village green, and there's a bus stop with a bunch of roses on. I thought, I'll have that. Okay. So I took the photograph, and then you do the lettering on top. But I used to, before I was writer, I used to work in computer games as a graphic artist. So working with Photoshop and 3D Max and all those things is money for old rope for me.
Oh, great!
It's good fun, though. You're right, Jordan. Philip. It's really good fun, isn't it?
It's a good sort of to decompress from having all that writing, and to have something slightly creative but slightly different than bashing out words. Yeah, I enjoy it, I have to say.
Do you do covers as the last thing or the first thing or in the middle?
Obviously I'm brand new to this, so last year I'd started writing, but then I stumbled upon a course that I figured might help, which was how to write a bestseller. It was one of the self-publishing formula courses, and they kind of advocated having everything up front at the start. Sort of, your slug line, your tagline, your cover, because if you ever, when you walk down that cul-de-sac and you get to the point where you think, oh dear, I've written 50,000 words and I don't know where I'm going, if you have that at the start, it kind of you can fall back on it and it will guide you forward. So from then, everything, kind of do all that in the first 3 or 4 weeks. It changes, but certainly, I would have an idea.
Yeah, it's I think it crystallizes the whole story and feel of the book if you've got the cover in your head or sort of roughly designed.
I'm the opposite. Mine comes last. It's the last thing I do because I'm not sure what's going to happen at the end of the book, and I don't know how it's going to feel, and so then I have to find a picture that will fit with it. So if I get a picture and I'm going to write to that, then I don't know. I think it might influence the story too much. I'm not sure.
Maybe narrow the vision a bit. No, I know what you mean. I do know what you mean. I find that certainly my outlines are loose and definitely change, but I found from years of writing with no outline, an outline, and it definitely put me on the right track.
I mean, do you have a sort of a very detailed plan about what your chapters are going to be, guys, or was it just like
very, very detailed?
Do you, Alex? Is yours?
It's because I'm writing so fast at the moment. One every 2 to 3 months. I don't have any room for getting to 60,000 words and realizing it's not working. I need to stop this. I've got to know it works. So for me, it's worth putting in a week writing a sort of 5,000, 10,000 words of synopsis, so that I know that the whole thing's going to work out.
I guess the way I got so I would have, and don't shoot the geek here, but I have a spreadsheet. So when I was starting off and trying to get my head around, right, how does the story flow and how does this work? I would have read a load of books, filled in a cell with what happened in that chapter, and then found a book by a guy about story maps. So he was more a screenwriter and kind of highlighted those beats of the story that successful stories, be it novels, movies, all have to hit. So now all I do is get an A4 pad and write 1 to 30 down the margin, and literally write a sentence for every chapter, and that kind of is enough to at least start me off, and then those can build up to a half paragraph here and there, but of a rough 1 page start to finish before I start.
Interesting. I mean, I don't literally write anything down really. I know what's going to happen at the end, and that is it. But how I get there, I don't know. And I find if I plan, I'm kind of writing it already. And it takes the enjoyment out of it, because I'm the first reader of the story, so I want to be excited by it too, and I want to not know what's going to happen, and sometimes I don't know what's going to happen.
No,
the characters do things that I didn't expect them to do. So I find planning, because I spend so much time planning everything else, I think, well, I'm not going to plan my writing. You do need the discipline to think, well, this is where it's going to end, and so I do have a plan for sure. And yeah, there's nothing worse than getting to 50,000 words and thinking, where am I going with this? I mean, that is just.
Well, I always, even with planning, I get what I call the mid-book blues. So you get halfway through the planned word count, and every single time without fail, and I've written 19 novels, you get to that stage and you're going, this is a pile of rubbish. It's really
But don't you find that all the time as well, though? You think, what am I doing? This is awful.
Well, yeah, that's life.
See, I'm glad to hear you saying that, because that for someone new and someone who's only just starting, you're just crippled with that thought of, oh my goodness, this is the biggest pile of rubbish, and how is anybody going to appreciate this? But then you get through it, and my biggest struggle, I think, is starting sometimes. When you finish something and then you're going back to the next book on the big blank page on day one. It's, even though you do have an outline, sometimes it's a fight.
Have you not started things and thought, oh, this is rubbish, I'm going to stop?
For 30 years. Yeah. But you get there.
Yeah, you do. And if you're not enjoying it, then your reader's not going to enjoy it either.
No, that's it. Yeah. I think that's it. It's bound to come across that you're plodding, or you're fighting the words, if you know what I mean. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's not good to do. But yeah, planning. I mean, I know Stephen King famously doesn't plan, does he? I think he does. Well, look, anybody that doesn't, I have huge admiration for, because I didn't for so long and just couldn't finish anything.
Quite a few people in our group who don't plan, and I'm always amazed because they write such complex books.
I think the ability to hold it all in your head is I just don't have it, I don't think. And as I say, from I was 16, younger than that, I was trying to write something, and it was until I understood story beats and those markers and the building blocks of what a story is. I just couldn't get to the end of one. So plotting and planning helped. It turned the corner for me. But as I say, hats off to anybody that is a pantser, as they say, and just fly along.
I don't think I am that. It's in my head, but it's not. I don't think it's as complicated as you might think, really, to not plan so detailed. That's going to happen. That's going to happen. That's going to happen, and the details just come out as you write it.
Yeah. No, well, as I say, mine are one page, one sentence.
That's pretty. You're making it up as you go, pretty much there as well, really, aren't you? That's so.
I suppose it builds. I have an idea, so yes. Once you have an idea and you work that idea along 30 sentences, you're there. The rest of it, as I say, you can build up. And as Alex, or who was it? Was it James Patterson? He spends 3 months writing 100,000 words of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could be bothered writing the book after I've written 100,000 words.
That's basically writing it then, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Apparently, I've got to tell you about the criminal shorts, because we've got an anthology that we sold for charity called Criminal Shorts. And the book cover on that is a misty morning photograph that I took on my way to work.
That's right.
Do you have a copy of it there to show?
I remember hearing that one.
It's a 6 a.m. very near my house photo through the church near where I live. So it just looks like a horror movie.
It's a great shot. It is a real great. Sometimes you just, and similar probably to yours with the lamppost, you just stumble across a shot, and if you're lucky enough to have, well, we all have a phone on us now, but sometimes you just, that one shot, if you get it right, it's great.
Yeah.
And also our phones are such good cameras as well. They generate such good output. That's
it. So our Criminal Shorts cover is my walk to work. This looks like a horror movie. Picture. Well, that says about my walk to work, really.
Thank goodness you don't do night shifts.
It was about 6 a.m., 6:15. probably in the morning. So it was still dark. I think it was winter. The other reason why I'm mentioning this is because coming up, we've got a charity auction for the same charity that the anthology benefits. And we're hoping to give them a lot of money because it goes to Red Kite School in Corby, which is a special school. It's a really good cause.
Yeah.
So drop a little plug in. Keep an eye out, guys. There's character auctions coming up first in July. So you can win a chance to be a character in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Which will be good.
Yeah, it's a good idea, that.
I know.
Do you put your friends in your books, guys, or are they all fictional?
Ooh, that's a yeah. You can end up in a lot of trouble with that. I've nearly fallen foul of that. I have been inspired by friends, but parts of friends rather than the whole package.
I put loads of my friends in the book. And,
Have you had any trouble yet from doing that?
There's only one person I put him in, and his character wasn't particularly nice. But I make sure they're always good.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Not going to
a flattering version.
No, I've no one. I do often toy with ex-employers or ex-colleagues at times, but no, it hasn't happened.
I've been in some books. I'm totally okay with being made into a villain, though.
What about a victim?
Yeah, why not? Like, you'd hope that you wouldn't be either of those in real life, so why not be it fictionally?
I love using
How would you like to die?
The most gruesome way possible.
This is going somewhere strange.
I'm going to ask Laura's question. She said, Philip, would you use one of your crime files as a prequel type story?
Yeah, Laura, I'd give a shout out and a big bit of thanks to, because the first short that I wrote, Behind Closed Doors, went out with a ton of embarrassing errors in it. And Laura was, some people were sharpened their knives, and it took me about 3 weeks to pull them out of my back and readjust how not having the legs cut out from under me on day one. Laura gave it a very gracious review, pointed out the errors, but certainly pointed out the positives of it. So I'm very grateful for that. But yes, funny, I was thinking about this today. I mentioned him earlier on, Doc Mcpherson, and the detective inspector that he works with, Veronica Taylor. Doc was her father's partner on the beat. So he has, after his tragic death in her youth, he sort of stepped in and as a bit of a father figure. So there's definitely legs in a Doc and a Derek Taylor story. Yes, I'll say that. When, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's rattling about there. I think it puts them back in a place that Northern Ireland was in that was a very difficult place. So to have that duo operating in that environment, so yeah, it's something I'll look at some stage.
What about you, Alex? Would you write a prequel
to DCI Boyd? I'm not sure. I don't know yet. There's a lot of story ideas going forward, so I think possibly when you've done 9 or 10 books, it might be interesting to explore the prehistory of your characters. But at the moment, my focus is on the taking them forward, because there's a lot I'm learning about it. This is what's lovely about writing a series: is you start with the character and his bare bones, and then you put the flesh on them, and the family and the subplots and the extended sort of storylines, which grow throughout the series and become these sort of meta narratives that build and build and build. And that's, for me, I think, actually the bit I don't know about the series. I mean, I plan my books, but I don't know what the series story is. So that's the bit I think probably I get from this that you guys get.
Would you do any follow-ups, Chris?
I do. I don't know. It depends how I'm feeling, really. If I feel that a character needs more development, then maybe I will do. Maybe I'll take it further. But I'm not sure. I've got so many things to write that I don't think I need to do any follow-ups yet.
Leslie Lloyd wants to know if you all have established ARC groups.
ARC groups, yeah. Yeah.
I have a small, now mine again, because it's relatively small, but it's pretty powerful. Yeah.
You've got to. It's like a safety net. Because, I mean, Debbie reads my first drafts, and we've got a copy edit. But even between those two, there's a whole ton of stuff that just sneaks past, and the ARC readers will catch those. They're good.
Yeah, I've just got a really small group for me, and sometimes they don't spot stuff, and sometimes they do. So there's always mistakes. Anyway, that's the only thing that you can be sure of. To be honest, there's going to be errors, and you're going to get it wrong.
David said that he's got both his dogs staring at him. He's heading out for a walk. But thanks, it was interesting and informative. And Debbie said she's got 4 staring at her. Sam says that you talked about the halfway sticking point, Alex. Do any of you find a particular part of the writing process difficult?
That's a good question.
Editing. Worst part.
Great there.
I mean, writing's great. Creating is a beautiful thing, and making the story and being excited by it, but going back over it, that's kind of hard.
Do you find that you when you read your stuff back, it's ghastly?
Definitely, all the time. I have to sort of pretend I'm reading something else.
Yeah, I think it's a bit like if you record your own voice on a tape machine. Remember how we used to do that with the old cassette things, and you listen back and it's like, ooh, I sound like that. That's how I find editing. I read my stuff and I roll all the way through it. I'm appalled.
Yeah, definitely.
It's quite a hard process to look at what you've done and correct it and turn it into passable English.
Yeah,
I think that I would agree. Yeah, especially the third time you've been through it and you're still picking things out. It's like, how did I ever miss that the first time? Never mind the third. But I think I'd said earlier, sometimes at the start when I'm starting, when you've everything planned, but you sit down to write that first sort of page, it's normally okay after the first 2 or 3, but you don't generally get halfway, and it's normally the start for me.
Yeah.
There's a question here that I'm not going to tell you who it's from, but it says, how do you find working with your wife, Alex?
My wife asked that. It's very good. Debbie's she's the kind of the brains of the outfit. I'm the guy that rambles out plot ideas and writes pidgin English. She helps me turn that into something that's enjoyable. I don't know how it happens, but it does. And also she handles all my sort of other things you need to think about when you're doing this whole Amazon thing, which is getting your head into the Amazon algorithms and how to market and how to categorize your book. I guess you guys have you been throwing yourselves into all of that mumbo jumbo?
Yeah, I suppose I have to a degree. It's another part of it, as you say. There's the writing, and then you have to try and work out where your book's sitting, how people are going to ever see it. That kind of.
It's a real dark science.
It's another job in itself.
It is
really. I mean, you just want to be a writer, don't you? And write the words, and that's that, and then give it to somebody else and say you sort that out. And but there really isn't anyone who's going to do that. I mean,
here's a bizarre thing, right? So previously to writing these, I read a series called Time Riders, which is a teenage science fiction thing.
Yeah.
And I built up a big sort of fan base for that. And one of the things I was concerned about writing this crime series was whether I should keep the same writing name. Because the problem you get then is if you get these science fiction fans come along and go, oh, Alex Scarrow has written another book, I'll get that. And then what happens is the Amazon algorithm goes, hang on, I thought this book was meant to be crime, but it appears that most of your customers like science fiction, so maybe we'll go and show it in a science fiction area. And of course, you're not going to get much traction with that because they don't want to read crime over that. Or you'll start to get really bad reviews because I thought he wrote science fiction. This is a crime novel, 1 star. It can be really damaging if you mix your audiences. It can really kill your Amazon performance.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's almost robotic, isn't it? Really, and it's not about being creative; it's about being sort of clever and tech savvy. And part of me says I don't want to do that, and another part of me says, well, writing books doesn't doesn't, put food on my kids' table. So basically, I can, me along with my publishing house, we can do whatever we want, and sort of it's kind of two fingers up to that, if you like. I know we shouldn't, but yeah, there's part of me that thinks that it's about the story and not about the algorithm. But it's a minefield, isn't it, to handle that? It really is. But you're quite good at it then, Alex, because your wife knows all about that.
Well, she's the brains, like I say. I'm the beauty. Yeah. She's been throwing herself into that, and it's a real dark art. You've got to know about all the sort of metadata and the keywords and categories.
Yeah.
And you do not want to be talking to the wrong audience, otherwise you'll sink without a trace. And you're putting in these things and markers into the cover, into the blurb, into the tagline that are saying, I'm this kind of book and I'm for this kind of person. It's like almost blind date, I suppose.
It is, yeah. It is another job. It's another few hours of the day you have to pencil in.
Yeah. But the writing's where we're all at. That's what we do.
Yeah, too right. That's what I'm all about.
Yeah.
Sam's empathizing with you about the voice thing. She said she recorded a story and deleted it a month later because it was dreadful. The only accent she can do is Mancunian, apparently.
I'm also in a band, guys, as well. So we've released a few albums, and listening to yourself back on a record is just awful. Once I played on the radio, that was dreadful. I had to turn it off.
Yeah.
I hate listening to myself on the things if I have to edit the videos.
Oh.
I won't watch myself.
I won't watch this back, guys. Will you? I mean,
what do you play in the band?
I play the washboard, actually.
That one.
Yeah, I play the guitar normally, but in the band I play the washboard, and I'm kind of the backing singer as well. So, yeah, it's a different thing. It's kind of rowdy fun, usually drunken fun as well.
I'm getting sort of Dexys Midnight kind of vibe here.
Yeah. Think about that with less musical ability. Do you guys play anything?
I used to play in a bunch of bands. Before I got into games, I was doing lots of gigs and festivals and stuff. We never got that big record deal, but had a good time.
What did you play, Alex?
Guitar.
Oh, nice. What lead or rhythm or?
Rhythm and backing vocals. I could never pull off those complicated lead breaks, so I could do twiddles here and there. But
yeah, nice.
Nope. I have zero musical talent, and I blame Recorder at school for my lack of interest and ability.
I'm no musical talent here either.
Well, I haven't either, but I'm in a band. You don't have to be musical to get a band.
You must have some musical talent, because if you're a band performing in a hall, you can't be that bad, or you'd be thrown out of like a window with the pub or something. I've heard stories.
Oh, yeah.
So I have read books by all of you, and they were all fab.
Oh, thank you very much.
In fact, Chris's was on my book of the year list last year. So, what have you read recently that you've enjoyed? I've yet to write the reviews. Sorry, Alex. It is coming.
Well, that's all right. Thank you very much. Anyway, there's no rush. Hang on, yes, there is. It's coming out in a week's time, isn't it? Plug. What have we read recently?
I think that the last thing that I read was actually by one of the UK Crime Book Club admins, Will Templeton, his Births, Deaths and Marriages. Finished it this week. It had taken me a couple of months to read, just between one thing and another. But yeah, it's very good. Really enjoyed it. Good crime caper. I think before that was maybe one of Simon McLeave's, Ruth Hunter's. So I do have the chap's books on the Kindle to read. I'm interested in this locked room trawler mystery. I had read funny. It wasn't crime, but I think it was Mike Lunnan Wood did a story about a lifeboat. It was called out into a shipping vessel with a load of cadets on board had an accident. Can't remember where it was set. I don't think it was Scotland, but it was a good book. Can't remember the title of it. But Mike Runham Wood, and it was about a lifeboat. It's a fab book.
Definitely. I like the thing I always find myself reading is John Steinbeck books. And I always read them. I've read them like thousands of times. I just reread them, and basically, all my books are just copies of John Steinbeck books. So that's kind of what I read all the time. So I've been reading Cannery Road again. Yeah, I can't stop reading John Steinbeck. I think he's great.
So I think I read recently one of the Mike Craven books. I think it was The Puppet Show, actually. That's the first one, isn't it? I enjoyed that. But mostly I think it's research reading I find. I don't... my bandwidth that's left over after research and writing I can't think I can read much after that. So it tends to be mostly research stuff. There's bits of, there's got a few forensics books I've been looking at, and Blackstone manuals.
No, I think I still like to try and read just simply to. I think it was James Cameron had sort of one of the director had said before you can radiate, you need to absorb. So I kind of like to absorb as many different books as I can, and certainly, as I say, sit down with my spreadsheet and break down the story and work out the beats. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
you've got a copy, haven't you? Sometimes you've got to work out what works. And
just that, I think. I mean, you sort of find that there is maybe like that sheet of music. There's a rhythm and a thing to most stories, and it's just you need to work that into your own. Make sure you're.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like in the band. A lot of the songs we do, because we do a lot of our own songs. In fact, we only do our own songs. They're just like a Westlife song, like slightly speeded up or slowed down or something like that. So it's nothing really new. It's just I've got a slightly different flavor. And I think some of the stories that we write, they're just the same thing, but the guy's got a different hat on. But, so yeah.
I recently read a book by Alex Scarrow, and I'm currently reading a book by Philip Jordan.
Very good. Thank you.
Good. And I have just finished a Japanese manga as well.
Quite an eclectic taste, isn't it?
I do have quite an eclectic taste. I need to go back and find the Time Riders, because I am convinced I'm going to like them.
Oh, well, alternate history, yeah, all those what ifs. That was fun to play around with. That was.
Yeah, they feel very much like something I want to go back and read after reading.
So why did you stop writing that, Alex?
It was so when I got the deal with Penguin to write this YA series, I wrote the first book, Time Riders, and they took it up with an assumption it would be a trilogy, because back 10 years ago, everyone was doing trilogies. So The Hunger Games was a trilogy.
Yeah.
Maze Runner was a trilogy. And so they assumed there'd be a Time Riders 2 and a 3. And I'd actually mapped out 9 books, but I was a bit coy about saying that. I didn't want to throw that on them. But once I'd signed the deal, I said, well, actually, it's 9 books. Are you okay to publish 9? And bless them, they did go for that, which allowed me then to thank God, to be able to map out the whole 9-book meta narrative, rather than this thing where you find so often where people have 2 or 3 books, and they don't know whether the publisher is going to buy into the next 2 or 3 books. So they don't know whether to bring it to a close. And it's so hard as a writer when you don't know whether your publisher is going to stick with you or not.
But do you miss YA then? Because that's quite a nice genre.
It is, but I'll be honest with you. I was burning out on writing for younger people just because you can't really. There are places you can't go, even though they say you can write for they're broad-minded and you can do this, you can do that, but there are subjects you can't touch, and there's language you can't use, and there are themes you can't hit on. And with crime, I'm talking to adults again rather than talking to a younger audience.
Yeah, exactly. That's square as well.
Well, Time Riders, by the way, is I've had as many adult readers as younger readers, dads and sons. So, Caroline, if you give it a go, you won't be talked down to. But I'm not allowed to say the F word or the C word, or I'm not allowed to sort of kill key characters, and there are issues and subjects that schools are very coy about. So I like to get quite gritty.
And with that, our time is up. But we'll finish off with another little recap of you and your books before we finish, if that makes sense. So we'll start where we began with Alex.
Clockwise.
Yeah.
So hi, I'm Alex Scarrow, and these are the first in the Time Riders series. Sky Boys series. 1, 2. And the third one comes out on the 25th of July. It's called Burning Truth.
My name's Chris Speck. I'm a whole and East Yorkshire writer, and I deal with the people and passions of this great land. This is my book from last year called The North Sea Tale. It's a locked room murder mystery set on a 1974 trawler. This is my next book, The Great Frost, set in 1709. It comes out next week, next Monday, and it's got lots of highwaymen in it, and it's very cold.
I'm Phil Jordan. I write the Belfast Crime series, so that consists of, at the minute, the Belfast Crime Files, which is, if I can get the camera, Into Thin Air and Behind Closed Doors, and Code of Silence, which follows Detective Inspector Veronica Taylor as she picks up the pieces following a failed prosecution against her nemesis, the former paramilitary turned corrupt business magnate Gordon Munster Beatty. But before the dust can settle, the two of them are plunged back into the thick of it with the murder of a ruthless member of the criminal underworld. So I hope you enjoy them.
Fabulous.
Thanks, folks.
Cheers, guys.
Speak to you all.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Have a good Friday night. See you.
Yeah,
Take
you
care.
guys.
Bye.